You do? You were there, right? You remember. You remember the day like it was yesterday. Maybe you even have pictures to prove it. But what if I told you that what you remember isn't actually what happened? That your memory is faulty and has been reconstructed by your brain to fit a narrative? You'd probably be pretty skeptical, and you should be, because this sounds like the plot of an episode of The Twilight Zone. But the truth is, our memories aren't recordings that can be played back. They're reconstructions based on what we think we know. And sometimes our brains fill in the blanks with details that seem to fit, but aren't actually true. And that's why you might have a memory that you know is false. When you think about a past event, you don't actually picture it like a movie. Instead, you go to the hippocampus, an area in the brain that stores memories, and get the gist of it. Then you reconstruct the rest from other related memories and what you already know. In other words, your brain basically guesses what probably happened and fills in the gaps. And sometimes those guesses can be way off. For example, let's say you went to a party and someone asked you how it was. You might say it was fine, even if you had a great time. Why? Because your brain decided that saying you had a great time would be weird and out of character for you. So you didn't actually remember having fun at the party. You just reconstructed the memory based on what you thought you would have said. But sometimes memories can be a lot more detailed and realistic than others. And when it comes to those, your brain might trick you into thinking something that never happened did happen. And it starts with suggestion. You've seen those CSI episodes where the lead detective asks a witness what happened and the suspect immediately confesses. Well, it doesn't always work like that in real life. Sometimes suspects will talk their way out of a confession before they're even asked any questions. But more often than not, these conversations don't end without getting at least some kind of confession because of something called the power of suggestion. When a person is being questioned, the investigator might subtly suggest something to them, like the suspect's fingerprints were found at the scene of the crime, and whether or not that's true, the investigator isn't lying. He's just leaving it unconfirmed. This leaves room for the suspect's brain to fill in the blanks and potentially make a false memory that he was at the scene of the crime. But this isn't usually done maliciously. It's often used to jog people's memories so they can remember more about a crime they witnessed. It's called a leading question, and it works because our brains hate uncertainty. We naturally want to fill in the blanks when we're missing information, especially when it comes to traumatic events like crimes. So investigators might use leading questions to help witnesses remember more about a crime. But it also tricks people into remembering things that never happened. Let's take the misinformation effect. For example, this is when you remember something happening in a different order than it actually did. For example, let's say you saw a car crash when you were younger. You might remember seeing the broken glass on the road and assume that the glass came from a rear window. Even though car windows shatter from the impact, you still think the glass came from the rear window because that seems more reasonable. So even though you know that car windows break during the impact, you can't help but wonder, what if the driver rolled down their window to take a call and then they crashed? So you remember a detail that seems likely, even though it never happened. And sometimes these false memories can be a lot more vivid than others. So why do false memories feel so real? Well, it's because your brain doesn't know the difference between a real memory and a false one. It's just trying to make sense of everything you know. So it puts everything together and gives you an answer. And the more you think about a false memory, the more confident you become about it. That's why people who believe they have a false memory often fight tooth and nail to prove it happened. They aren't lying. They genuinely believe what they remember happened. False memories aren't always big and obvious. Sometimes they're small details. But just because they seem small doesn't mean they aren't real to the person experiencing them. So, when you think you remember something, it's important to keep in mind that your brain could have filled in the blanks. It could have taken something you read online and put it into a memory. Or it could have gotten details from another memory and smushed them together to make something new. At the end of the day, our memories aren't perfect. They're a reconstruction every time we think about them. So remember, just because you remember something doesn't mean it happened. Thanks for being with me. See you again.